It is indeed a pleasure to have this privilege to play here for you. We intend to give you a very fine program, so just settle back, relax, and enjoy the moment.
Good morning. Check 1 2. Good morning. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, YouTube. If anyone's watching on YouTube, shout out to my 4 views a day on YouTube. Shout out to my 185 views on Twitch. Shout out to my 30 to 65 to 85 views on Facebook. We gonna build this thing brick by brick. If nobody else is gonna tell you how hard it is to build something, to build our culture piece by piece, I'm gonna let you know every step of the way. Good morning. Good morning, Meg. Yo, a moment of confession. I woke up this morning and I ran out. And this is a bad new habit y'all just started. Ran out, went to the new Starbucks that's over here by me. And it's my new thing that I'm doing, but I like to get out the house. Like, I need to just go ahead and just take a walk in the morning. I got up early this morning and I ran out and got a triple shot of something here, caffeinated. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna talk about today. I don't know what I'm gonna talk about today. Yesterday I was like, about the TIF districts and talking about how, TIFs, all those TIFs, 11 TIFs in Charleston, all but 2 are on the peninsula. We talked about gentrification, Topgolf. It felt so thick. Good morning, Whiskey Neat. Hey, Quadro, I gave you a shout out yesterday. Good morning. Hey, Michelle, I got your DM. I got you. We're gonna talk, Michelle. Good morning. Thank you for tuning in on Facebook. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to talk about. And I'm like, girl, talk about what you want to talk about. Some days it's like, but there's so much Charleston news. There's so much news regarding our our lawmakers. There's so much news. This light is mad bright. My bad, but I think I look good with it. I look good, right? It's real bright for no reason. All right, but there's a lot of news to talk about, and so I'm gonna hop into it. I'm just gonna jump into it. I really didn't know what to talk about. There was these crazy murders in Colleton County. Taisha, as usual, was on it yesterday. Sent me the link to the story as soon as that news broke. That is headline news. That is front page news today. We're gonna start with weather though. Y'all let me know if there's any technical difficulties. Remember, y'all my executive producers. Good morning, Rajon. Good morning. Remember, y'all are my executive producers and whatnot. So let me know if you can't hear something, you can't see something. Drop it in the chat. All right, so today's weather, yes, it was gorgeous, by the way. Gorgeous. I definitely enjoyed reading on my balcony. That's another healthier ritual. Reading on my balcony every evening. Just really decompressing. Forgetting that, all the oppressive things that happen here in Charleston, that's a thing. Drinking some cheap Moscato or some really good Riesling, depends. So today, 76 degrees. Charleston weather has our forecast. Wednesday, 86 degrees is the high. Scattered thunderstorms. It's hurricane season. Y'all know how it is. Turning hotter. Y'all know that tomorrow and Friday, I think, and Saturday going to be scorchers. And you can see that right there. So Thursday, tomorrow, isolated thunderstorms. Friday, 91 degrees. It's getting there. Y'all know how it is. Shout out to Charleston weather. Shout out to Jared Smith. Make sure you support Jared over on Patreon. Support and follow Jared on Twitter. It's CHS. WX, y'all know what it is. Support locally sourced news and information. All right, front page news. Yeah, crazy crime, and the crime has I'm not trying to diminish the loss of life at all. I know sometimes I can sound flippant, or I do make jokes sometimes inappropriately. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's just. I don't know. I do that sometimes, but I'm not going to make any jokes about this. But this feels like some sort of true crime series in terms of the twists and turns within this story. Two members of a prominent white, moneyed, wealthy, a prominent family in Colleton County ended up dead, double homicide. Want to skip down here real quick. Let's just keep the focus right here, and we're going to hop over to the front page of the Post and Courier. And so that is at the bottom of the Post and Courier, but it is a top story. We're going to get into the video. We're going to get into local coverage of this story in a second because it has some twists and turns in it. But I'll go ahead and let me change the display. I'll go ahead and just read a little bit. Gregory Yee wrote this story. So it's in the town of it's in the area of Islandton, right? Part of Colleton County. Is this unincorporated? All right, let me just read it. After a late night shooting that left 2 members of one of South Carolina's most prominent families dead, authorities have been tight-lipped about the details surrounding the case. Paul, it's Murdaugh, I think. Yeah, Paul Murdaugh, 22, and his mother, Margaret, 52, were found shot night of June 7th, said Colleton County Coroner Richard Harvey. So I know they're still awaiting autopsies. Y'all know that name, Paul Murdaugh. He was involved in another tragic accident. He was drunk driving a boat, I believe, and all the boat they hit. Well, we'll get to it. Well, they were drunk. He was driving a boat while intoxicated. 6 people, I think, were thrown from the boat. Everybody surfaced except one girl. And I think he was awaiting. I think that was still being litigated. That wasn't a closed case. Yeah, also on the front page of the Post and Courier, we're going to get to that reporting. Just let me speed through the front. Non-public schools get $39 million in aid. That's the plan. You know how we do here. We talked a lot about TIF districts yesterday. Shout out to Dr. John Hale, who's no longer at USC, no longer at CSC. He's over in Illinois. I'm looking forward to having Dr. Hale join me on Mic'd Up. He reached out and initiated some conversations about the state of public schools and dark money and a number of things that he and I have had conversations with, or we've discussed at least on panels. So I'm looking forward to having John Hale join me on Mic'd Up to talk about some of these things going on with public schools and with also non-public schools and that funky hybrid. I have no children, so sometimes I'm a little bit out of the loop, but that's why I want to bring on some other voices. After 7 decades, citadels, capers, halls coming down. You see that I mentioned the Phillips community. You also see that I mentioned the preservation regime. We're going to get into that. Shout out to my homie Brian Walter, who dubbed the folks who preserve the entities, the organizations that preserve much of Charleston's history, whether it be the Historic Society, whether it be the Preservation Society, state preservation societies. They've done they have been for generations, and they were actually created to you could argue they were created to preserve only one aspect of history, thus erasing large swaths of Black, Indigenous, Gullah Geechee, Black Indigenous history and culture, Latinx culture as well. And so we've dubbed them, or Brian has dubbed them, the preservation regime. And so this is not unintentional, but they finally did something right. Parts of our preservation regime finally did something right. And there have been some steps towards correcting some of the errors of the past in terms of stop erasing Black culture, Black history by not preserving it. That's the reason why Septima Clark's birthplace it's not a historic landmark. It has a marker outside of it, but it's a sorority house. There's a reason why the Majeska Simpkins house was almost going to be torn down a few years ago, and then we see fast forward to just a week ago, gubernatorial candidate Mia McLeod is announcing her historic bid. She's launching her historic bid on the steps of the Majeska Simpkins house. This is all intentional. To the not preserving Black stuff. That's something that's intentional. But we finally got a win, and we'll talk about it. But no, ain't no win that they gave us. Shout out to Mr. Habersham. Shout out to everybody in the Phillips community who've been fighting tooth and nail for generations to earn the distinction that the preservation regime finally was like, okay, all right, we'll get there. Shout out to Mr. Habersham and all of them. And we're going to get into some video that features him as well. But I wanted to get through the kind of the difficult news, regarding that headline with the family, the mother and son shot dead. All right, so this is Live 5 News, so this is going to come with a little ad, y'all. Hold on 1 second. Let me mute it. Let's mute it.
Those in motion.
Right, so let's read the headline. Mother and son shot to death at Colleton County home. Coroner confirms. All right. And so, yeah, we're going to unmute this in a second. We're also going to talk about some class issues today. Some Panama paper stuff. All right, come on.
Is Live 5 News.
A mother and son killed in a shooting. What we know about that shooting that left 2 members of a prominent Colleton County family dead.
That's right, Rajon, I see you.
And we are watching some showers, though diminishing now. What about the rest of your week? And it's going to start to get hot. I'll tell you how hot live now, new at 7.
We are continuing to follow the shooting in Colleton County this evening that left a son and his mother dead. The Colleton County Coroner's Office identified the two as Paul and Margaret Murdoch. Lisa Wiseman of Live 5 is outside of the Colleton County Sheriff's Office now with the latest.
Yeah, Raphael, this is a pretty prominent family here in the area. 52-year-old Margaret Murdoch and her son, 22-year-old Paul Murdoch, both found dead from gunshot wounds. Now this, like we said, a prominent family in the area, especially running in legal circles. Several family members have served as solicitor over the past several decades here in the area. So here is what we know so far about what happened last night here in the county, specifically in the area of Islandton. So their bodies were found.
Okay, I'm seeing, hold on one second. Getting a little freezing. Y'all drop in the chat if y'all having trouble seeing everything. Drop in the chat if you having trouble. It looks like a couple of frames were slowed down a little bit. Yeah, I don't know, my stream is experiencing issues. Okay, now it says it's good to go. All right, we're gonna try that one more time. I know, sorry if y'all were watching on Facebook and it got, just stick with it, leave and come back. Let's see. I saw that it was slowing down a little bit. Just drop in the chat if you're having problems.
In a building on their property along Moselle Road. They had been shot to death. They were found at about 10 o'clock last night.
Sorry about that.
Throughout the day today, we saw many SUVs and trucks pulling onto the property. We know that some of them were investigators. I did see one canine unit from the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. We know that sled agents and Colleton County deputies also there on the scene. But it seemed like several others of those vehicles could have been family members or friends. I had the chance to speak with Colleton County Coroner Richard Harvey earlier today. He told me that they are expecting to do a forensic autopsy on both those bodies.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. It's freezing on my end too. It's like going in and out. I don't know if it's that web. I don't know. I'm seeing the streaming. It's when I stop the video. I got you. Just bear with me. Stick with me. Let's keep going. You're having some issues. Yeah. I think so. Let's see if that might have been associated with the actual Live 5 website. Not completely sure. All right. So, and it's a little bit of a lag on my end as well. So, let's see. Usually YouTube is fine. I'm going to look at, the great thing is I can see when the performance starts lagging. I think it was because nope. Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be one of them days. All right, we're gonna put some good juju out in the ether. Maybe I got too many windows up. I don't know. Maybe I got too many windows up. We'll close that one. Let me see. I had a lot going on. All right, let's see what we're gonna go to next. All right, so that was the story. Again, the story regarding the shooting was unfortunate. Let's move forward. Hopefully y'all can see me. Hopefully y'all can hear me. I know it's going up and down. I see people coming and going. Just come on back in if you can. Let's hop back and transition to the Phillips community story. Let's see this, and then we're going to hear directly from members of the Phillips community. All right, so let's try that.
Charleston County Council hearing their first request for a historic district, the Phillips community off Highway 41 in Mount Pleasant. The Historic Charleston Foundation announcing tonight.
Every time I play video, what's good? it's just not letting me stream video today. It's like as soon as I hit video, it just acts like that. I don't know if it's I don't know what it is. And internet is strong. It's crazy. I'm sorry, y'all. This is so frustrating. As soon as I play video, it just acts really crazy.
That the Phillips community meets criteria defined in the Historic District Ordinance. News 2's Kate Prestak was at that council meeting earlier tonight, joins us now live in studio. And Kate, you talked to people who lived in that community, who do live there, who hope this will put a stop and end to that proposed 41 widening project.
Well, Brendan, those still living in the community say that they've been there for generations and want to continue that tradition for more generations to come.
Our community was established in 1875 by former slaves, freed black men and women, planned and organized our community.
Fred Smalls, a Phillips community member, says with military lineage from the Civil War to the current day and claims to the birthplace of South Carolinian governors, the community has much to be proud of.
Yeah, it's not worth it if y'all can't see me. They say you can hear me fine, but I don't like it. I don't know. It's just weird. And internet is fine. Internet is super fine. Something's going on with Streamlabs. That's the software I use. I don't want to keep using it. Oh man, let me figure this out. Let me figure this out real quick. Let me see if I
Of
History.
So, okay, what I want to do is, let me figure this out. When I play video, it stops streaming. But there's things I wanted to share with you. Let me think. It's choppy. I don't want to keep doing it. It defeats the purpose. We might just call it a day. I'm not sure. Because it's just not performing well, and it's not really worth it. Y'all tell me what y'all want me to do. Just drop it. Thank you, Rajon. you holding on. I think some other people bailed on Facebook. But Twitch chat, drop in the chat what you want me to do. This is really difficult to keep talking about things when I'm gonna see if I can stream a podcast and see what happens, because we were gonna hold on one second just to see what's going on, and then we'll see if we can get back to video parts. All right, so let me get back here. So this was a story back in April regarding the Phillips community, right? So it was shout out to Emily Williams and shout out to the homie Gavin McIntyre. This is part of the Understand SC podcast. The Understand SC podcast, where they outlined it. This is where I caught wind of the more recent updates. This kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about largely. It's like a broader conversation I wanted to have today about white magnanimity and white folks when they decide to kind of wage into white interests in preserving either Black history or advocating alongside Black people. It's complicated. Y'all know that I don't need any allies. Y'all know that I am anti-allyship. I don't believe in allyship. Allyship, as it's set up, allyship is all about you having a mutual interest, right? And that's why you have to have a vested interest and have equal stake for you to be interested in. Thank you, Meg, for the feedback. I appreciate you. Allyship requires people to have a vested interest, where Black folk and people pushed to the margins because of systemic racism, because of widespread anti-Black racism, because of our country's history and how our country was built on white supremacy. We don't need allyship. We need folks who are actively going to work to dismantle white supremacy. We need people who are going to actively dismantle white supremacy without benefiting from it, without gaining something from it in the long haul. Typically, what we see here in Charleston specifically within like the nonprofit industrial complex that happens to be white led. You see a lot of white folk join causes like last year, right? So last year we saw so many white people join the fight for a fight against police murder, the fight against police brutality, even though scores and scores of black people have been killed on video. Scores and scores of black people have been killed on video. Philando Castillo, Eric Garner, Rodney King wasn't killed, but he was beaten severely on video. Tons and tons and tons of people, tons and tons of black people, brown people have been murdered at the hands of the police. But yet, what was it about last year to get white people out to advocate, right? And I know you're saying like, what that got to do with the Phillips community? Well, like I said, the preservation regime. Let me see if I can bring up this picture. The preservation regime. That's not it. Let me see if I can move this over. Let me bring this up. Boom, boom. This is something my friend Brian dubbed, right? So this is what Brian dubbed the preservation regime. Let me reduce this. I can see y'all. Okay, so this is what Brian wrote. I copied and pasted it, and I shared this on Instagram last year, right? The Charleston's preservation regime does even more than just protect the history of the Confederacy and bury and whitewash the history of slavery. Though we know that it sure does that, right? It does more than that. By working to preserve and monetize white history and heritage, the industry also works to perpetuate the same narrative that it glorifies. So, for instance, the Preservation Society and Historic Charleston Foundation do not just preserve homes, but function as tools for black displacement and gentrification. Preservation Society developed the nation's first historic district, which acted as early redlining. Let me read that again for y'all. The Preservation Society developed the nation's first historic district, which acted as early redlining, and Historic Charleston Foundation's model was literally purchase black property and pass it to white buyers who could restore it. Right. And you see that right now in downtown Charleston with all those shotgun homes. Like my daddy would tell me all the time, all those little shotgun homes that they strip down to the very beams. Right. And then they restore it. Those are black homes. Remember we went over the TIF district yesterday. We went over TIFs and how the September Clark Expressway went right through large swaths of black communities, displacing black people. Right. And so even though that's not a historical preservation, we saw that that all disrupted home ownership, that disrupted lives, that literally displaced people because they took homes through eminent domain. But also we do see now a lot of those homes were purchased after folks were displaced for many different reasons. Communities were devastated, certain businesses were lost and no longer on the peninsula. All that impacts how black people can live and thrive on the peninsula. And so what you see now are all those little shotgun homes that used to be, and all those little corner stores and all of those things that used to be occupied by black folk. Those things have now been stripped down to the very beams and restored, right? So that's how you see that more visibly. That's just one instance. We didn't even get to plantations and all that other stuff that either black labor built, the wealth that black labor built, the wealth that exploited black labor built. We didn't even get to that, right? But let's read that one more time. I'm gonna read it one more time. Just get on y'all nerves. Preservation Society developed the nation's first historic district, which acted as early redlining. And Historic Charleston Foundation's model was, thank you for the follow. Historic Foundation's model was to literally purchase black property and pass it to white buyers who would restore it. Historic districts protect white landowners and give them control over what happens in certain areas of town. Similarly, the conservation of wilderness and plantation spaces functions as a tool to preserve white plantation land ownership, tax-free. Read that one more time, because I just was on Donnelly. I was on Donnelly out there on 17. I was on Donnelly. All right. Similarly, the conservation of wilderness and plantation spaces functions as a tool to preserve white plantation land ownership, right? Tax-free. right? Because when you preserve it and make it a nature preserve, now you don't have to pay taxes on it like you would. And we're talking about thousands, hundreds of thousands sometimes, but thousands of acres, right? Right? Okay, I saw what Rajan wrote a while ago. I hear you. I'm gonna try to play it again. I don't know why it's acting up. All right, so we see that. Okay, all right, so tax free and restrict access to the land that in the past Black folks either utilized or owned. In short, preservation is not just about preserving memory of white supremacy. It's about actively and materially continuing white supremacy itself. And again, that's from the homie Brian Walter, a really dope friend of mine, and I hope that helps people understand. So when we talk about the Phillips community, we have to talk about what the historic Charleston Foundation and what the Preservation Society have historically been complicit in, and also so now we know that our historic Charleston Foundation created the first historical district in the country, and how that was used, that was weaponized against Black people, Black communities to take their land. And you remember we talked about this yesterday with the TIF districts. You have to designate an area to be blighted for the TIF to be initiated. Right? So this is also in line with that. And TIFs largely do a lot of redlining. I think yesterday I misspoke and said social covenant. I meant racial covenant, which is another word, another term for redlining, right? So I wanted to just make that abundantly clear. And then now we're going to go back to, so this was in April, a few months ago. And I'm going to pick up the podcast, I think right around here.
Of everybody, the joy of who cooked what.
So, but this is okay. So this is the Post and Courier's Understand SC podcast. This podcast was hosted by Emily Williams and Gavin McIntyre. You know, Gavin just launched that impressive project where his photojournalism was featured in a Pulitzer Center backed project. And you know, I have mixed feelings about the project, but I have no mixed feelings about Gavin. So it was great to hear Gavin's voice on this podcast, and also to see and read his contributions to this story. You hear the voice of one Phillips community member here, and then you're going to hear Mr. Habersham, I think. But just take a listen.
Who's baked that, or you get a piece of that baked goods that person baked the night before or the week of, and you got a piece of that. From every house you went to, there was not one house that you went in that you didn't get something from on Christmas Day. And we will parade around the whole area. And that was the joy of being a young kid in Phillips, and it was Phillip, because everybody knew each other. Everybody enjoyed that. Christmas is coming up. We know we'll go to so-and-so house because they got the bigger cake. We like this cake that they bake, so we'll go to this person's house. Oh, let's go to so-and-so house because they got that they'll give you a bigger bag of candy as kids. So you enjoy that stuff. And that stuck. We always had that pride of loving each other and taking care of each other and looking out for each other.
Being on the register could give them a better sense of security.
This is what I wanted to get to. I didn't mean to cut. It was kind of out of context, so I don't know if you guys could track. But this is the part I wanted to get to about the historic society, or the historical designation. And we are going to go back to that news story. It just listen to the audio. If it's choppy, it's choppy. But we're going to listen to the audio and then talk about it. All right.
Loving each other and taking care of each other, looking out for each other, watching your back.
Okay, here we go. Michelle, I see you.
Because of its historic significance, the Phillips community is attempting to be included in the National Register of Historic Places. To the residents of Phillips, being on the register could give them a better sense of security for the community's future.
I know they don't stop everything from happening, but it'll make people think twice before they come and try to change the culture on Phillip. Mm-hmm. Our wealth is not how much the value of my property. My wealth is, can I live here?
Come on, Mr. Habersham.
Quality of life.
Come on, Mr. Habersham.
Since we don't have a lot of old buildings, we're looking at the development patterns. It's like I said, the lots are long. It's elongated. So that is unique to the area. The elongated parcels. So that's one thing. And you got the people that's been here. Imagine you having a family been here. I'm fourth generation.
You know, what he's doing too, this is something I argue when I'm in certain spaces about, whether we're talking about wealth, art, history, culture. When it comes to Black folk, or I'm just going to speak for Black folk, there are tons of other communities that this would be applicable. And I talk about this a lot in terms of gender, in terms of the imagination, the lack of imagination Charleston and other places like Charleston has for Black women, right? The lack of imagination for where we fit into society. And I know a lot of folks are like, oh, Mika, you always lament about that. It's very real and very frustrating to live and be a part of a city when you know you have something to offer that's up here, but all they want is what you can do in terms of labor or physical and emotional labor. It's taxing and never to be valued for your voice when you see a mediocre man walk by and just be gifted platforms and prizes. So I talk about that a lot, right? And I'm using that not to censor myself. I'm just saying that I see the same thing when I when I pull out a little bit and look at the larger view in terms of how Blackness is valued here in the Low Country. And we see this most directly, I think, or most explicitly through how the Preservation Society and how the historic Charleston Historic Foundation and all those other folks in the preservation regime, how they just don't preserve Black communities or Black history the same way they would a rice plantation now that's named Donnelly, and it's now basically a tax haven in some way, shape, or form. Right? But when it comes to Black culture, there are not buildings there, but there's a legacy there. There are stories there. There are generations of Black people who have never left that area. There are generations of Black families who've been there so long and have there's that historical memory there. That's not valued, right? That's what makes that different from what makes that different. I'm trying to think of some white places that people what makes it different from a plantation? Honestly, we know what happened on plantations, and we know that they were labor camps, forced labor camps, where torture, rape, and all types of exploitation took place. We got that, right? I'm not saying that we should preserve plantations as monuments to white supremacy, but I'm saying what makes, how they created that false memory around, oh, well, this is where all these Southern customs emerged. This is where all these traditions in the South and mint juleps and sweet tea, and how they whitewash what plantations represent. Oh, these are gardens and these are historic wilderness preserves. They do all of that around an atrocity. Why can't you preserve a Black community that had this rich heritage, this rich culture that was connected to the wilderness, that was connected to the environment, that was connected to agriculture, that was connected to self-sufficiency? What's the difference between that historical memory and white historical memory? There's no difference. The value, and again, I know I'm making a janky argument, but you get what I'm saying. Like, the value to me is the same, right? And so, but we do that here. That's why Back to Green. That's why Gadsden Green. That's why there is no home. There is not that much home ownership left over in Back to Green, because they took that land, right? They took that land. Not only that, they took the very creek, the very wilderness where folks, how folks remained self-sufficient and built businesses out of that creek, built lumber yards and, raised agriculture, or raised livestock rather, over there on that creek, which is now a landfill with a baseball stadium built on top of it, right? They created that disconnect between the Black community and that land. There's power in that land. There was culture in that land. There was culture in that marsh. There was culture in that creek. But so what do they do whenever Black people have made a connection to culture or have made a historical stake? They sever that connection. They sever our connection with open spaces. They severed our connection with bodies of water, and they continue to do that. And as my friend Cyrus Buffin would say, this is a pattern of taking. So they don't just take our land and our homes. They also try to take our culture and our history as well. And so it's just something to think about that. Like, why wouldn't this be preserved? What makes this, why can't you imagine this being just as worthy as some bullshit ass labor camp that you turned into a garden? Magnolia, Middleton, Drayton Hall, Boone Hall, right? But when it comes to black communities, it's not the same. Again, this is why Septimus Clark's birthplace is a sorority house and not a preserved landmark. This is why we don't have statues to Octavius Cato. This is why we don't have statues to E.E. Just. This is why you don't know anything about the founders of Maryville. This is why you don't know about the real Black Wall Street, the literal Black Wall Street we had where free black people lived behind the Gilliard. This is why you don't know this history, because they never wanted to preserve it. And they literally build on top of our history. That's why our bodies are beneath the College of Charleston. Our bodies are beneath the Gilliard, and so on and so forth. They don't want you to know about this. This is an act of white supremacy. So when we talk about this in present day, in terms of, oh, the Historical Foundation finally got their shit together, like, that's how it should be framed. They finally got their shit together. Not that they did the right thing. They dragged their asses, they dragged their feet for fucking, excuse me, I know I get mad though. Like, they dragged their feet for generations and for 100 years, literally 100 years. And then we supposed to like give them a pat on the back. I'm glad they did this, but it was overdue. Let me get back to that story. Let me go to, let me see. I want to get that one. Yeah, let's just go back to the story and play it. Like I said, if it starts chopping up again, at least you can hear it. And then we'll stop it, and I'll probably come back to another. I'll pause it and just keep talking. But let's just play it.
Charleston County Council hearing their first request for a historic district, the Phillips community off Highway 41 in Mount Pleasant. The Historic Charleston Foundation announcing tonight that the Phillips community meets criteria defined in the Historic District Ordinance. This is Kate Prestak, was at that council meeting earlier tonight, joins us now live in studio. And Kate, you talked to people who lived in that community, who do live there, who hope this will put a stop and end to that proposed 41 widening project.
Well, Brendan, those still living in the community say that they've been there for generations and want to continue that tradition for more generations to come.
Our community was established in 1875
Fred
by
Smalls.
former slaves.
Fred Smalls.
Freed black men and women, planned and organized our community.
Fred Smalls of Phillips community.
Real quick, I'm gonna pause real quick. Michelle on Facebook, and I'm not gonna get into our personal exchange on DMs. Run for county council. Run for county council. Don't. We could talk about city council. Run for Charleston County Council. I'm gonna leave it at that. You got to.
Member says with military lineage from the Civil War to the current day and claims to the birthplace of South Carolinian governors, the community has much to be proud of.
History
Tisha,
is strong.
Grand Rising.
It is tied to this country. We like to see it preserved, and we want it to be told, and we would like to tell it.
But in order to tell it, community activists say the land must remain intact. Charleston County officials must not cut through with Highway 41.
Phillip is Phillip.
Richard Habersham, the president of
Habersham.
the Phillips Community Association, says the action being taken today to avoid the very same fate of communities who once surrounded them.
The 4 Mile community, which was town center, there's no more communities there. You look at the 7 Mile community further down on 710. They're hanging on, but they're just about gone. The 10 Mile.
This is a living historian, y'all. Get this man some flowers. Y'all know him. Get this man his flowers. Elevate, amplify, donate. This man is a living, like, this is what civic engagement looks like. This is what, and this is just, you know, and we know about him and his fight. So, because I think since I left here in 99 to go to college, around that time is when this man started this fight, like out and like loud. Of course, he's from the area, so his fight literally began when he drew his breath and because he lives there. You know, your existence is a disruption in these places. If you're black, your very existence and your existence is resistance. So I don't want to say that his fight started in the 90s. His fight started when he was born and raised in this area. But this is living history. This man's voice should be the voice, a prominent voice that you hear over and over and over and over again.
Community down there, they're on life support. This will give us a little chance to give the next generation a chance to, you know, have a quality of life.
The hope for more generations ringing through both the Historic Charleston Foundation and the Preservation Society as calls for protection ended the night.
Given the mounting pressure from growth and development surrounding Phillips, we feel this is a critical time to designate it as a historic district to help protect it for future generations.
Finally.
The next step for the community is a Planning and Public Works Committee hearing that will be held on June 17th for the council ahead of 3 readings for the designation of the historic district application.
They should do the same thing for Wamala, but they won't.
If and when a decision is made, we'll be sure to update you both on air and online at count-on2.com. We're now live in studio. I'm Kate Preston.
Hey, John, you say he could cook too? I'm telling you, all these black men from down here can cook except my daddy. Sorry, Dad. Sorry, Pops. All these men can cook. Like, seriously, all my dad's cousins and like brother cousins, you know, they like brother cousins and brother uncles. All my dad's family can cook and throw down and can smoke something. Man, I didn't get the full Gullah experience, y'all, growing up. I swear I did. Not inside the house. But yeah, thank you, Regina, for bringing that up over on Facebook that he can cook. I bet you he can. So I wanted to hop over. Now it looks like things are acting right. Hop over to this now. This is the Center for Heirs Property, their YouTube channel. Check them out, y'all. Go to YouTube. This was a long. Now this is 55 minutes. I can't play the whole thing, but this was a longer interview. This is from December 18th, 2020. Mr. Habersham is featured here along with others, and this is something that's being hosted by KJ Kearney, and so I thought this was a very valuable conversation.
So
let me play it.
Hard time, Dawn, imagining y'all playing in this water though. Y'all used to jump in this water?
Yes, we used to play in it, but the water didn't look like this.
Okay.
All this came after they built the golf course in Rivertown.
Got you.
You know, and what we did, we said.
You hear that? After they built that golf course. Yep.
Swim over this bridge.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah. I mean, it had all the necessities. In the summertime, you plant, you have your garden.
Right.
And you utilize the creek.
Right.
In the wintertime, you go over here, you gather wood, because everybody, burn wood, heat, and you hunt. So it's you always had food on the table from the landscape.
Right.
You know, like everybody now have, well, you're going back organic. Well,
right.
We was doing organic, back in the day when it wasn't cool to be organic.
Right.
For real.
Right.
I love the Center for Heirs Property. I don't know who did the scoring though. The music is like dramatic. Like, I mean, Mr. Habersham is the superhero, but I felt like somebody was gonna come with a cape. I love the Center for Heirs Property. That's not a dig. It just was whoever did the scoring was really inspired.
My name is Richard Habersham. Some people in the community call me Dawn. I'm the president of the Phillips Community Association.
Go ahead, bruh.
We've been in existence now since 1999.
Yep, 99.
By itself. We got started because of water tank. They wanted to put a water tank in our community that Dunes West didn't want. So we got organized to fight water tank.
Y'all hear that?
We lost, but we got credibility about it. Yeah. From the county and from Mount Pleasant.
That's how you fight.
So tell me about the history, because you told me.
So when, and this is something to remember when people were asking about work over in Back the Green with Friends of Gaston Creek, right? My clique, right? Gang. Like, yo, he just told you 99. In 1999, y'all, I'm 40 years old. I left Charleston in 1999 to go to college. All right? Y'all, that's how long this was. That's how long ago this was. And so, like he said, getting credibility. And now they're just now, B-roll matters, yes. They just now they earned credibility through that fight. They put up a good fight fighting the water tower, even though the water tower came because Dunes West didn't want it, right? Golf course communities and all that. But they got credibility. Look how long this takes. Like, justice is not a short-term strategy. And even the oppressor has been working overtime even longer to continue to put these communities down, to continue to bulldoze these communities, literally or figuratively speaking. Imagine that 99 is when he really got really organized and been fighting this. 99, and let me just say, black don't crack. I don't know how old this man is. How old is Mr. Habersham? because I can't tell.
This goes back a long time.
Super Sham. I see you, Ray John.
Well, the earliest date we have of the Phillips community is in the late 1600s when Sarah and Robert Fenwick got a King's grant and got 550 acres, which now is the Phillips community. And from Sarah and Robert, they didn't have no kids, so they deeded the property to their niece, Sarah Hex. She married to John Rutledge. You know, you have John and Edward Rutledge, signed the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution. Yeah. This is their birthplace.
Okay.
They got this plantation through their mother. It was Sarah Hex that owned this, but John Rutledge married to Sarah Hex. John Rutledge sold it to the Hallbacks. In 1875, Elizabeth Hallback sold the property to my ancestors and the founding members of the Phillips community.
And so that's about your family really goes back to about the 1800s.
1875, I can date it back to my great-grandfather, Hercules Geddes, and he was one of the founding members of the Phillips community.
Damn. That's amazing.
We took a walk with Mr. Habersham to discover the richness of this historic community.
Now, we got a tomb in the middle of the community. We haven't found out exactly who it was. We were just thinking that it probably was the Fenwicks. Yeah, you can see the top part of the tomb. See the tomb? See the tomb right there? You can see it?
Oh, this is?
Yeah, this is the tomb. Now, when I was younger, there was a door, with a wooden door in the front, and the whole thing was enclosed.
So what was it like as a child growing up in the Phillips community?
I didn't know I was poor until I left there. I tell you the truth, that's what it was. Because, you know, ain't said that you was hungry or you didn't have, because everybody had business saying. You had a roof, you had kids, you had siblings, you had cousins, and you had the neighbors.
Hey, Michelle, you asked a great question. Do we know if Mr. Habersham and those run for office? Like I was trying to articulate, I probably did a crappy job, right? This is civic engagement. So I think sometimes we think that civic engagement only means, and I don't know, to answer your question, it'd be great to know. It's not a bad question at all, but I don't want us to think that running for office is the only way for us to affect change in our communities. I think we get caught up in that because the power is within the community as well. And so how they've been able to galvanize this community and also leverage, and I was trying to say this earlier as well, leverage some of those well-meaning whites or white people who just want to preserve their land. A lot of white folk enjoy rural status, like living in rural communities, because there are a lot of benefits, economic benefits to living in rural communities. Also, you're able to get a large parcels of land. And so there's some white, I won't call them allies or co-conspirators. I think maybe they're more allies in this instance. But because I'm saying all this, because Mr. Habersham and his community members have been able to organize since the 90s and also get the buy-in from white community members who have come to this community and purchased land and put up homes here, that is civic engagement. And thank you so much for just co-signing. That is just as valuable as running for office. So there's all types of civic engagement, and this is, to me, very powerful. You can literally, people care about a constituency that's engaged and that can be mobilized to the polls, mobilized to stop things. This is what lawmakers care about. Protest is great. This is what I try to impart to younger organizers. Protest is great. It's a great tool, but it can't be your only tool, and it can't be your most used tool, because lawmakers know one thing. A lot of people who protest and take to the streets, they might not be part of the voting constituency, right? So the power that this man has in organizing an entire community, and I don't know if I've seen this, and I've seen this on Wymalaw, because y'all know a couple years ago we were fighting that treehouse and rezoning on Wymalaw. These outsiders came to Wymalaw lying about indigenous heritage, lying about all kinds of things. Oh, I'm a Christian and I'm here. We're building these tree houses, and they wanted to rezone Wymalaw to bring in all these commercial interests. And what did we do? All of Wymalaw, white and black, packed out that county council office. They had to have an overflow room, just like we saw with the Phillips community organization. We saw these members of the Phillips community pack out county council and nope, we're not doing this. You ain't running 40, you ain't widening 41, you ain't doing this to us, you're not taking away, right? So when we did it on Wamala, who came? Here comes the preservation regime. And that included environmental groups who never, ever came and say, hey, let's start prioritizing Black history and culture in Wamala. They never did that. But when they saw that these Black, this multicultural community all came together, we're having regular meetings in the community center on Wamala, and then going to county council and showing up in big numbers, here comes, name that environmentalist group that brings that, name that preservation group that comes in and like, oh yeah, we care too. We're here too. We're here to help you. Right. But that's what people pay attention to. But the hard part is the trick will be if white people can give a damn about this, if these white institutions, if the preservation regime can care about these things 365 without having to be prompted, bribed, pushed, nudged, reminded, shamed. Like, can they just do the right thing? Can you preserve Black communities without having it face near crisis? Can you preserve Black communities before the majority of the folks die off and most people are displaced? Can you preserve these communities and help them earn the distinction that help them get the distinction that they have earned? Can you do that? But that's my whole thing. You can't center your movement on white people because white magnanimity is so unreliable, right? So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to. I think that's very valuable.
And everybody was your parents. Right?
And Rajon, you know everybody in this video too. I see you in the comments.
Yeah. No matter what house you went to, so your parents always knew what you did and where did you go to.
Right. So tell me about the people that are moving in, because Mount
Listen to this
Pleasant
part.
has changed dramatically over the last 30, 40 years.
Listen to this part.
What is the Phillips community like today? Who makes up this community?
The community is still about 90% Black.
Okay.
But you have Caucasian moving daily. Because like one of my neighbors say, well, they prefer living over here because they don't want to go in the subdivision. If you look at this house over here to your up in front, they just moved here about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're from Canada.
Oh, from Canada?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like the area, they have no restriction, say out the little fence.
Yeah.
And notice now,
Listen.
have a fence, but they don't have a privacy fence.
Right.
So they moved in as members.
Yeah.
A lot of people move in, and the first thing they put up a privacy fence. They're here, but they're not here. They don't want to be.
You see that my daddy, my aunts and whatnot used to always talk about that on Wamala. How there are so many white people now. Like Wamala is just I think it's barely even a majority Black right now. I think Wamala is about to flip to be majority white in a matter of years if it hasn't already. But there's tons of white people on Wamala. You never really see them. Because they either put up these fences, or they're way back off the road, or they way back. They found the waterfront property that they got back there. Sometimes you get lost on off of Bears Bluff on Wamala. I live on Maybank, but if you go down the fork on the other side of the fork, you take that right to Bears Bluff, you'll see all of those hidden white homes and mansions that you never even knew existed. And you be like, wait, hold up, what's this thing back here? And that's what white folk tend to do. They like to come to these rural these places and almost Columbus it. One thing about Wamala, and participating in the trash cleanup on Wamala that was led largely by the new white inhabitants. They want to keep it rural. There's a definite interest to embrace the entire community, but I would say one opportunity or one area where they could improve is explicitly naming Black culture and trying to preserve it, as opposed to trying to just kind of whitewash all of the history. I think somebody wanted to nickname Wamala the Wad or some bullshit like that. No, we're not nicknaming it the Wad. We're not doing that, right? We're not doing that, fam. We ain't doing this. Just like how y'all did with north of Morrison, Nomo and stuff. Y'all not New York. This ain't Soho. This ain't that. No, it's Wadmalaw. It's easy enough. It's easy enough to say and to spell. All right. And that's what white folks tend to do when they come into these areas. Yeah. Oh, you work at the Centers for Heirs Property. I didn't know that. Oh, you helped make the video. Okay. I wasn't trying to bash the music either. I just was real strong at that moment, like a superhero. Oh, cool. That's good, Rajon. I'm everybody in this video.
Party community.
Right. Do you feel like people still, want that community sense?
Yeah. The older folks like my age, or even in people in the 40s, it's still like sense of the community. Because we have some youngsters, they want to come back, but they can't.
Right. Why can't they come back?
No property.
According to the town of Mount Pleasant, the average home in the year 2000 was valued at $185,500.
Look at that jump.
The U.S. Census 2019 data values today's average home at $441,600.
So we talked about yesterday with the TIF districts too, right? And let me see if I can bring it up over here. And I talked about the spectacle of recovery, right? So I pulled this from a study. I want to say this was, I gotta find a study. It wasn't the rural identity studies, but I forgot what study I pulled this from. But this is the change, and then this is not property values, property taxes and stuff like that. But what this is, this shows you the flip. This is what I pulled out when I was researching when I was talking about the spectacle of recovery, how developer Riley came and as a developer, he had this very specific plan in place, right, for Charleston. So this is what Charleston looked like in terms of race, right? This is from 1890 to the year 2000, and this is Census Bureau information from 2001, right? So back here in the 1890s, right? You see how many this navy blue line is white. It's white folk. Y'all see the legend here. Is white folk population and black people. Black people Charleston was majority black, right? After the Civil War, remember, all them white folk left. They left all them bodies. They left all them mansions. Charleston was majority black, right? Then we have, how the fall of Reconstruction, how that went, right? All that murder, the black codes, all that shit started happening right around here, right? Jim Crow. Slavery by another name, and then you see the population of Charleston going up, coincide with that history there, right? And then you see a spike right here, civil rights movement, right? Civil rights movement starts right here. Then you see this shot, so right here in the 60s, see right here, 65, 70. Look how high, look how big, look how many black people live here compared to white people live in Charleston. Y'all, we had it. We had it for a second, y'all. Y'all, we had it for a second. Damn. Look at this. 65% African American, 35% white. This is right coming out of civil rights, right? Yup. And then you start seeing that decline. And when did Riley get in office, y'all? Now, Riley doesn't cause the decline, like he didn't. Let me say this. Let me say it right. He can't, it's not all 100% Riley, but Riley's policies right here, oh, that's all him. Riley's policies and development as a developer of Charleston, oh, this all Riley right here. This precipitous drop, right? This precipitous drop, it's almost like the same drop we saw coming out of the civil rights movement with white folk, right? So civil rights and whatnot, black people getting their piece of the pie, right? Beans don't burn in the kitchen, moving on up. That's when white flight, right? So we see that here. You see a similar type of decline here. And what is that? Gentrification, redlining, de facto segregation, all kinds of things, school stuff like that. Just all kinds of land seizures, preservation regime working overtime, right? And so that's something to keep in mind. Like all this is just really some data that we just need to look at and you can line up what was going on in office. You can line up what was going on, I guess, in terms of what was going on civically with just take a look at what was going on and make some sort of determinations regarding why there are fewer black people in Charleston at certain points in history. Let me see. I was doing a janky job of kind of tying in how white folk joined the fight for the Phillips community, because that's what's going to save it, is white people going to just start giving a damn, right, and do the right thing. And so listen to the SC podcast, again, featuring the homie Gavin McIntyre and Emily Williams. She does a good job as well. Go find this episode. This is it's about around April 1st, right? April Fools. Go take a listen to that, read that story. And then this morning I woke up and I shared this, and I'm gonna hop off after this. I'm not gonna stay on till 9. Then I woke up. You're welcome, Rajon, if you're still watching. I woke up and I just played this episode of Code Switch. Y'all know I recommend y'all listen to Code Switch often. Oh, I'm gonna check out the Twitch chat. I've been ignoring the Twitch chat. But I woke up this morning, like listening to the news about the Phillips community, and then this just happened to come on, and this is exactly. Like, this is my frustration. I've never centered white people. I know some people might think that I center white people because a lot of white people follow me. I don't center white people. I don't center the white gays. I'm really talking to black and brown people. White people just listen, right? They get to listen, right? I don't center white folks. But I remark about how janky white support and white magnanimity is. I've always been talking about that. It's so fair weather, right? And this episode of this retrospect, and this is the retrospect we should have did here in Charleston, not about no damn broken glass and all that. The retrospect we should have done is have white folks finally gotten the hint that, hey, we need you to dismantle white supremacy, not just like treat it like a festival in the summertime, right? Because you're tired of staying indoors. And I think folks knew, black folk knew especially, that this wasn't going to be permanent. This wasn't going to be sustained, right? We knew that. That's why I was calling folks out in real time. Like, yo, forget that whole black square. What are you doing to actually change the material circumstances for black folk here in Charleston, right? And then we saw just quite quickly when Jason Cooper was murdered by police and when Jamal Sutherland was murdered by police, no white institutions were up in arms. No one shouted. So you knew, it was all performative. It was almost 100% performative, right? So here we are. So this episode of Code Switch was very interesting. I'm gonna play a little bit of it from the beginning because I just thought it was super dope and hit it right on the head.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Waystar, on a journey to transform healthcare payments, helping healthcare providers streamline the revenue cycle and offer a better financial experience for patients. A whole new future is opening up. Visit waystar.com to learn more.
I'm Shireen Marisol Meraji.
I'm Gene Demby, and this is Code Switch
from NPR. In June of 2020, the early days of the pandemic, it seemed like most of the nation's attention was focused on the police killings of George Floyd in Minneapolis and Breonna Taylor in Louisville. People took to the streets across the country in outrage, even in cities and small towns that were almost entirely white.
Mm-hmm. And around that same time last June, a poll came out from the Pew Research Center that found that solid majorities of Americans, about 2/3 of all respondents, across racial and ethnic groups and political parties, expressed support for the Black Lives Matter movement.
Oh, and corporate America wanted in on the action, too.
Mm-hmm.
Companies from big box retailers to bidet manufacturers.
The NFL, too, of all people, NFL.
Oh, yes. The NFL, they all released statements about the moment, or they pledged to give money to quote-unquote racial justice. News story after news story, essay after essay, sermon after sermon called it a time of racial reckoning for the entire country.
2020 was the year that forced Americans from all walks of life to pay attention to a movement and have some tough conversations about race.
Millions took to the streets last summer in some of the largest protests in U.S. history.
History that needs to be reckoned with as we search for a way forward.
So, Shireen, just like on our side of things, when all this is going down, I know this is probably true for you, I saw this wall of new white faces on my Instagram feed, like thousands of new followers who have been pointed to Code Switch, on one of those anti-racist reading lists.
It was very surreal. I was like, ooh, should I make my IG private? I'm still wondering if I should.
Yeah, I want to say, like, I had so many mixed feelings and still do about last year. Y'all go check out Code Switch. It's today's episode. It just came out this morning. It's one of my favorite podcasts, period. Those are not the hosts. Those are just two featured guests on today's program. But Gene Demby and Shireen Marisol Meraji are the hosts. But this is something I'm going to switch views. I'm going to switch views over because I'm about to hop off. Yeah, this is something that I struggled with, not struggle with, but just kind of, I think I'm entitled. A lot of people will say, well, what did you expect? It's okay to be human and expect more from other humans. It's okay to fight really hard, work really hard, and expect better outcomes. And I remember after I was likened to a monkey by a woman who went on and made more money and gained more prominence and increased her celebrity profile. I remember just how feeling like utter shit, because a lot of the attention that was coming to my page were people who love to dig at Southern Charm and I thought people were really invested in my health and well-being, and a lot of people were. They still stuck around, but I just saw white folks engaging with my content, the content of my peers, content of other Black voices who may not be my peers but who are out here doing quality work. I saw how whiteness interacted with Blackness around this time, and it was so draining, and it was so difficult, and I was trying to find my way, and I made mistakes just like everybody else did. I made mistakes, learned from those mistakes, but ultimately walked away from it saying that, you know what, I think a lot of it was a lot of white folks' relationship with me and my content was so extractive and transactional, and either people wanted to see me thrash around and try to own this white woman with this racist lineage, this racist heritage. People really wanted to just sign on for that spectacle. Me tear down this woman that y'all love to hate on TV. People were really invested in that spectacle and not necessarily invested in actual change and bringing about change and changing this whole dynamic or changing this whole mindset where Black pain and atrocity is entertainment or a commodity. And I've had these really deep conversations about my relationship to whiteness, even in friendships. I've had these really, really challenging thoughts, more so than I ever have. And I just want white people who are watching, again, I don't center the white folks, but I have a lot of white folks who do give a fuck. And I just want to say, y'all, just don't ever take for granted, don't ever forget your friends are Black first. If you have Black friends, don't identity, don't ever forget our journey, don't ever forget what it's like to be in this skin in this city, and a year later where people have forgotten. It broke my heart to continue. I'm missing frames a little bit. It broke my heart to continuously talk about Jason Cooper, and know that folks weren't invested. It broke my heart to talk about Southern Charm and know that people really relishing seeing me throw down and fight with a white woman. It broke my heart to see my son die at the hands of police and people not care until the video came out. We told you what happened, right? Yeah, Evelyn, I saw the comment too. I don't that even Preservation Society. I've seen Preservation Society. I'm in community with folks from the Preservation Society, and we've had meaningful conversations and interactions. But I'm not giving the gold stars. I'm not giving no gold stars to them, and I'm not saying you're suggesting that. But I'm over with this. Oh well, they're doing. I'm over that. I need to see real change and not just programmatic changes or not just this new orientation and focus. I need to see real sustained change, Black leadership, not just white women leading things, but Black women leading some of these initiatives, lifting up some of these voices, imagining Black people and Black leadership in preservation spaces differently. I need to see them apply pressure to the CVB way more way more. It's not a, and that's the thing, like, it's one thing to get elected, right? And I know my internet or something, not my internet, I know my thing is acting up y'all a little bit. I know, like, when people say, oh, you need to run for office, one reason why I don't run for office is because we need to run like 3-4 candidates at a time. One person on city council is not enough, right? You need to actually build out coalitions that support the changes. So if the Preservation Society is doing the right thing, but they haven't been able to tap the shoulder of the Historical Foundation or the CVB or other influential white folks and white institutions, if they're not collecting those institutions, if they're not holding them to account, all they're doing is looking good over here, making these individual decisions without really interrogating power. And honestly, the Preservation Society really would have to forfeit a lot for me to be impressed by their actions. Just because you discovered black folk 5-10 years ago, and I know that sounds really crude, but I'm just gonna keep it a buck. Just because you discovered that black people exist matter 5-10 years ago, you're not getting a gold star for that. And like, what are you doing to change this entire preservation ecosystem here? What are you doing? Are you creating beyond like things where we see representation? You hiring a prominent black influencer, or you lifting up the one black male artist that you already been lifting up, right? Where's the trust in other voices, right? Where are the trust in bold and courageous voices? I have not seen the preservation regime lift up any courageous voices that are counterculture. And until you start preserving shit that's counterculture, and y'all please send me via email. I'm giving y'all permission via email. Send me the Preservation Society's comments on the Denmark VC statue. Need their statement. I would love to read it. I'm not saying it don't exist. I'm saying send it to me, because I wasn't even curious enough to look. Send me their statements on the Denmark VC statues vandalism, and send me their plans to help preserve that history in their fight. Send me that if you can. DM me with the Preservation Society's reaction and response to the Denmark VC. Just send that to me. And again, I don't know if I'm not saying it don't exist. I got a hunch. I might be wrong. I'm wrong. But send it to me. I gotta go looking for it, I'm sure. Right? Like, we know versus cosmetic change. And like, you wanting to be on the right side of history, that ain't enough. Like, how are you collecting these other white folk and these other white institutions that continue to commodify black death and black trauma, but don't preserve none of the things that we are proud of, right? Our story doesn't begin and end at slavery, Jim Crow, black codes, rape. Our story doesn't begin and end there, right? Exploited labor, exploited child labor, right? Lack of bodily autonomy. That's not our story, right? Preserve some of the good shit. Preserve Phillips, preserve Wamala, get up all up and through Almondale, get up all up and through Edisto, get up all up and through, Ravenel, Hollywood, Red Top. We ain't got no statues. We ain't got no monuments to prominent people. Mary of Maryville should have a statue. Ernest Everett Just should have a statue. Schools. Y'all don't even know who our heroes are. And then people come to my page like, when the book club. Book club started off at 700 people, and then precipitous drop to the point where I'm hemorrhaging cash, make it happen. Oh, where's the book club? You run the book club, because I'm not getting paid to do this. I'm hemorrhaging cash putting this on. 4,000 people, Britta Blank Park. White woman calls me a racist trope, and that white woman still gallivanting around Charleston getting awards from black organizations and still has credibility with black men. White woman calls me a racist trope not once but twice in front of other white people, and then tries to say I'm anti-Semitic. But this woman got credibility, and why are you bringing it up? Because white support and white magnanimity is so flam, for lack of a better word, and that's the best word. It's so flam. Because where were the white people to stand up for me and like denounce this woman publicly? Where was the white women who stayed around and helped organize and create the infrastructure so we can run better candidates, right? I didn't just do a women's march. I did a tribute to Septima Clark and electoral justice and electoral access. We had voter registration. We had all these goals and plans, and leading up to the rally, kept packing out the meeting spaces that we were organizing. Didn't have enough chairs. Didn't have enough conference rooms to fit everybody. As soon as that thing was over, crickets. Try to do a bus trip, crickets. Try to launch other initiatives, crickets. White magnanimity is so flam, and that's why you can't center whiteness. That's why you can't sit up here and give white folks cookies and gold stars and pats on the back for just recognizing my humanity. You have to do far more than that. And I have people in my life who do that, but I'm tired of this thing where you wanna keep reminding me of how generous white folk can be. No, I need reparative justice and reparations. The money's not yours. The land is not yours. Give it back. Give it back. And I'm tired of going back and forth. It's exhausting. Y'all know how to get on Mars, but y'all don't know how to preserve Septima Clark's birthplace. Y'all know how to get on Mars. Y'all landing space shuttles on Mars and the moon and shit, but y'all don't know how to put up a statue to Octavius Cato. I ain't seen not one person talk about the voter suppression, the laws being signed into the law, legislation being signed into law every day that impacts Section 5 states like ours. I ain't hearing nothing about that, because you want a black person to start and have her hair on fire or have his hair on fire or have their hair on fire, and then you might join it and throw a couple of shillings at it, right? And then I'm tired of being called scary. Oh, you scary? How am I scary? Scary how? Oh, you scary. That's why we didn't call you, because you scary. How am I scary? Oh, we could have called you. You scary. Because y'all want performative stuff. And them days is over. I don't care. Like, I can't care about white sensibilities and white sensitivity anymore. That is beyond deprioritized. That shit is not even it's a non-factor. And so I'm no longer making white folks comfortable actually causes me harm. Making white folks comfortable in their complicity in perpetuating white supremacy actually causes me harm. So I don't care about your comfort. You shouldn't be comfortable. And that's the misconception, is that this work is supposed to eventually get easier for you. This work actually gets increasingly more difficult. It gets increasingly more difficult. And it's going to cost you more and more and more if you're a person of privilege and means, and you're a person of whiteness, a person that's white. It's going to cost you more. If you're really in this fight, it's going to cost you more. So I'm just in the spirit right now. I'm in this mode of really interrogating a lot of my relationship to white people and looking at their relationship to black people and black things. Because I'm just tired of it. And I'm tired of y'all really want me to comfort y'all. Y'all really want me to contextualize. Like, it's just, no, you're not entitled. Not entitled. Black people, I pick my brain all you want, black people. Pick my brain all you want. Copy and paste too. Just give me my credit. Just like I credit everybody else. Give me my credit when you take something from, when you borrow something. Not even take, when you borrow something or reference something. But black people pick my brain all day long. White people, I ain't got no time and energy capacity, because y'all fair weather. reckoning that wasn't. Go listen to that episode. Shout out to the Phillips community. Shout out to Black people. We've been doing this. We've been advocating for ourselves. We've been bootstrapping it. We've been grassroots organizing. We wrote the book on grassroots organizing. We created co-op. Shout out the Progressive Club. We created, safe havens. When we were banned on Folly, we went to Tybee Island. When we were banned on Folly, we created Mosquito Beach and other beaches throughout Charleston, right? Like we create, when you tell us no here, we make a way, we survive, so us surviving isn't a surprise. Us thriving isn't a surprise. White folk thinking that they were, white folk deciding, remembering that we exist and we can do it. That's always something that surprises me. Anyway, all right, that's it. I know that took a turn, but